وَمَا نُرْسِلُ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ وَيُجَادِلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِالْبَاطِلِ لِيُدْحِضُوا بِهِ الْحَقَّ وَاتَّخَذُوا آيَاتِي وَمَا أُنذِرُوا هُزُوًا. Surah-Al-Kahfi, Surah 1896. Wama and no, nursilu, we send al-mursalina, the ones who are sent. So when the ones who are sent, this refers to the messengers. That's fine, but if we translate, we did not send the messengers, it does not have that beauty as does we do not send the ones who are sent, because this is connected with root words. Just as we read nursilu al-mursalina, we can hear that connection, right? So, and we do not send the ones who are sent, and then we can clarify that with it is in reference to the messengers. That would do. But this is a way to preserve the beauty. Obviously, the beauty in any language gets sort of lost in translation, that we know. But anyway, let's proceed. And we will highlight some of the other points as we proceed, as we go along. For example, and how did we add the word definitely? And we definitely do not send because of the word ma, which is a stronger sort of negation. Okay. Illa, except. Now there are two things that I mentioned, which are the work, so to say, of the messengers, mubashirina wa munzirina. Now mubashirina, it's an ism file, as well as munzirina is an ism file, the one who does or the doer pattern. How do we translate that? Except as bearers of glad tidings and as warners. And I did try to search, do we have a similar term? Warner is a single word, right? But bearers of glad tidings, it's not a single word. So I tried to find out, do we have a single word for that? And I did not find it. So this is the best that we can do. Mubashirina is a single word. Munzirina is a single word in the Arabic language. But the equivalent is not existent in the English language, as far as I know. And I did search through quite a bit. So anyway, what is it discussing till now? And we definitely do not send the ones who are sent, that is the messengers, except as bearers of glad tidings and as warners. So what is the function of the messengers? Two functions basically is what is being highlighted. After that, what happens? Let's see. Yujadilu. So jadalan, if you remember, sort of argument. So sort of this word appeared 2 verses back in the form jadalan, which is a masdar, the concept form. So those who engage in illogical arguments, that sort of construct we gave. Yujadilu alladhina kafaru. We need to understand this construct. Yujadilu is the verb, and alladhina kafaru is the subject of the verb. So that will have to be translated first. So wow over here, but it is but not and, but those who have disbelieved, alladhina, those who have disbelieved, dispute. Jadalan is argument, that's fine, but how do we translate that in a verb form? Those who have disbelieved, dispute. And to dispute is to argue. So in that sense, I found this the most suitable word that can be used in this place in the translation. And what do they dispute with? Bil batili, using falsehood. Al batili, using falsehood. That is fallacious arguments. I brought back the term argument because jadalan is an argument, right? That is fallacious arguments. Li yudhidu, so that they could refute. Yudhidu, to refute. Adhada yudhidu, yudhidu, to refute. So that they could refute. It's in the plural form. They could refute. Bihi, with it. Al-haqqa, the truth. Truth, refute truth. With it, with what? With jadalan, right? So to emphasize it or to bring context to this translation, to capture the connotation that is implied, the best way to translate this is so that, nasab always takes precedence. Be should be later. So we do that and we bring in the emphasis implied through the Arabic construct so that they could refute truth, especially with it, and it refers with the illogical use of it, because illogical argument, jadal, right? With the illogical use of it, that is kutarka. Kutarka, I'm not expecting you to know, it's not even an English word, it's a Sanskrit word. It's there in the Indian languages, which are derived from Sanskrit. For example, Bengali, Hindi. I'm not sure about Urdu, but anyway. So now, I've used this word in brackets for those who are familiar with the Indian languages. It brings in an additional benefit. If you are not aware, that's perfectly okay, because I've given it in the English language to the best of my ability. But we have to use 4-5 words for it with the illogical use of it. How many? 6 words for it. But kutarka is just one word. So just as in Arabic, sometimes some of the Sanskrit words are able to convey. Arabic conveys in a single word, by the way. Similarly, Sanskrit is able to in this case, but English requires more words. So now what is, just a tangent, just a diversion, but I think this will help those who are familiar with some of the Indian languages. Now there are 3 terms: tarka, vitarka, and kutarka. Tarka, vitarka, and kutarka. Now what is, if you translate simplistically speaking, tarka means argument, vitarka means argument, kutarka means argument. But again, 3 words in English cannot have the same translations. The same word cannot be used for 3 different words in the original language. There must be some difference. I understand that tarka is there in vitarka and kutarka as well. So tarka would mean basically argument or casual argument. Vitarka would mean, if that was casual, this has a more serious intonation to it, a more serious tone or a more serious note. So you could say logical argument. And kutarka is, now tarka and vitarka can be thought of as a continuum. Kutarka is not even in that continuum. It's illogical argument. Illogical argument. So if at all, then you have to bring kutarka at the beginning. Kutarka, tarka, and vitarka to form a continuum. That is illogical argument. This is casual argument. This is logical argument. So anyway, this was not required, but just for the benefit of those who are familiar with some of the Indian languages, they can appreciate that so much more. That's why I just thought of highlighting this aspect. Otherwise, the translation in English is sufficient. Then let's proceed. Wa, besides. We'll translate as besides in this case. Ittakhazu, they have taken. Ayati, my verses. Wa ma, in this case, ma is not, ma is what over here. And what? Unziru, this is in the passive. What they were warned of. Huzwan, with disdain. With disdain. Besides, they have taken my verses and what they were warned of with disdain. Now, disdain can be a bit difficult to understand even for native English speakers. It's not a very common word. The easier translation would be, they treat my verses as a joke. They treat my verses in jest. They treat it with mockery, as an object of mockery. These are some of the easier sort of words, substitute words, but these, you could have even say contempt, but disdain is a word which perfectly captures the connotation that is implied through the use of the word huzuwan, through the usage of the word, Arabic word huzuwan. Why? I'll explain disdain a little bit more. In disdain, there is an element of contempt, and you are speaking from the point of, or with an air of superiority. That's a false perception, but you have that false sense of superiority. And the object of your disdain, the object of your contempt, you consider it to be inferior. So with that background, I hope you are able to understand why I have preferred the word disdain. Joke, jest, mockery, contempt, even some of the other words, they're okay. Scoff, even some of the other words are okay, but disdain has the sort of closest in meaning to the word huzwan that is used in this sentence. I think this is interesting, very interesting, especially in the beginning part, Nursilu al-Mursalina, that part, and this kutarka that I've used. Argument, and then I had to use dispute, so I had to bring fallacious arguments to compensate for that. Specially is not an addition of mind, because that's bihi and al-haqqa are interchanged. So that specially with again the illogical argument, jadalan, again I brought back that concept as well, illogical use of it, illogical use of that argument. So all of these, and I have clarified with the word kutarka to represent jadalan basically, but that's in the Indian language context. Otherwise, especially with the use of illogical use of it, is also perfectly fine. We'll read it once. Another interesting point is, in the same sentence, the word ma is used twice, but one time it is in the sense of no, and the other time it is in the sense of what. So that is also something to note of. You cannot just blindly translate. Even if it's within one verse and a word can have multiple meanings, the context determines what it should be translated as. Because to the Arabs, it's clear. They know there are two different meanings, and the context, it's very clear. You try to misfit the other word, it doesn't make any sense, right? And this makes perfect sense. Anyway, so we'll read it one more time. وَمَا نُرْسِلُ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ وَيُجَادِلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِالْبَاطِلِ لِيُدْحِضُوا بِهِ الْحَقَّ وَاتَّخَذُوا آيَاتِي وَمَا أُنذِرُوا هُزُوًا. And we definitely do not send the ones who are sent, that is the messengers, except as bearers of glad tidings and as warners. But those who have disbelieved dispute using falsehood, that is fallacious arguments, so that they could refute truth, especially with the illogical use of it, that is kutarka. Besides, they have taken my verses and what they were warned of with disdain